All right. All right, thank you, everybody. This is City Council meeting in the City of Glenwood Springs. It is the first regularly scheduled City Council meeting of February, was it today, 4th, 5th, 2021. Steve, could you please take roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Jonathan, I still have the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting showing on my.
Two.
I don't know if we're in the public
You
here.
guys can just hit view there and then you can hit gallery and that should change it. Go to gallery view from speaker view.
It went away now. We're good.
Okay.
Literally, as soon as you said it, Paula, it popped back up for me too. So, yes, go ahead, Steve Boyd.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Kopp.
Here.
Councilor Willman.
Here, and can you speak up a little bit, Steve?
Councilor Stepp.
Yes.
Councilor Hershey.
Here.
Councilor Wusso.
Here.
Councilor Davis. Mayor Godis.
Here.
You've got a quorum, sir.
All right. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Agenda changes and conflicts. Is there any changes to the agenda for this evening or conflicts of interest? Paul.
I have an affiliation with Youth Zone, so I think I'm going to have to step down from the positive youth development proposal.
Okay. Any other conflicts of interest or agenda changes? Okay.
I'm going to mention too that I have been a past volunteer at Youth Zone, but I haven't been able to do it here recently. I don't believe that it creates a conflict of interest for me. So I'm going to continue.
And I'm just going to mention, Mr. Mayor, as Paula knows, and maybe Ingrid knows, I work certainly in the judicial system with Youth Zone a lot, but I don't think that that creates a conflict. If anyone has any other opinions, I will certainly be open to that. Thank you.
And I'll just say, I think they're a fine group.
Sometimes.
All the time. All right. Thank you. Everything else good with the agenda? Going once, going twice. All right. Citizens appearing before council for items not on the agenda. So if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak, let me bring up my participant list. These are specific to, if it's on the agenda tonight, please hold your comments for that time. I see a few hands up. So if there's something that is not on the agenda, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Give your name, address, and there we go. Miss Reynolds, you are clear to talk.
I think I'm unmuted, so I'm hopeful that I did that accurately.
You did.
I wanted to make some general comments before you get into your agenda this evening. I wanted to make sure that our voices are heard about the fact that our community endures volumes of traffic like no other in the Roaring Fork Valley. Glenwood Springs is a community full of dead ends, cul-de-sacs, and one-ways, and they all lead down to the valley floor. I personally consider traffic the greatest threat to the desirability and livability of Glenwood's valley floor. The valley floor appeals to residents and tourists alike. It's the most walkable. It's where the majority of our businesses are located. We must be looking to the future about what our strategies are to accommodate this desirability. Adjacent communities' growth has been exponential. Ours is landlocked and we're constrained. Please remember, for all of our benefit, that traffic calming must be proportionally designated to accommodate the current load and the anticipated load that it will carry. A simple turn of the wheel of a motorist and a depression on the accelerator gives that motorist all of the power that they need to move freely about our community. You cannot do the same for any pedestrian. We are the most vulnerable. Our residents are at the most vulnerable. And as we open up more and more avenues to the traffic, they will find the way. Please, in all of your future considerations, re-examine your thought process on what you too consider to be the biggest threats to desirability for our beautiful community. And as you go forward, keep that in mind, and please think carefully about slowing down in town, taking a minute, and just honoring the people that are in the neighborhoods. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. All right. Trying to Adam. Name, address, 3 minutes. Go for it, sir. Oh, okay. Hold on. Adam, can you hear us? If you need to unmute yourself, it's the bottom left-hand corner.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council members, Mayor, and other city residents. My name is Adam Kohlers. I live at 52089 Highway 6 in the apartments there with my wife, Maria. We've lived in Glenwood Springs for over a year now and find it beautiful community, set in the mountains, activities to take part in, obviously, and I get to hold a career job at one of the local hotels in town. Love our kind neighbors and the friendly locals throughout the valley. I want to bring forth to everyone's attention what I've witnessed the past 3 weeks during shifts at my hotel, walking through downtown during my leisure time, and when returning home to my apartment late at night. First, thanking the Glenwood Police Department for all of their professionalism and help for these situations, but it's removing trespassing homeless individuals from our lobby, the pool area, and stairwells, all separate occasions. Well, I'm not unfamiliar that this happens everywhere around the country, and certainly during frigid nights and these cold temperate months. I'm concerned at the frequency this has been happening, especially spreading into West Glenwood, starting in December throughout January, now into February. We found individuals sleeping in our stairwells, causing disruptive scenes in the lobby, and even received complaints from visiting parents, guests that one was taking pictures of their children in bathing suits in our pool. Next, while walking over the pedestrian bridge east towards the downtown corridor, I was screamed at for nearly 15 seconds. Someone was having a psychotic break and thought my logo on my hat triggered a paranoid response from them. Clearly a mentally ill individual that was sitting out there for hours at a time. And lastly, returning home, 2 homeless men were squatting and sleeping on the covered benches of our apartment complex where we take our dogs out to relieve themselves. Just a little bit more about me before I get into my question, but my question, this valley saved my life. I found this valley out of necessity, not leisure. I came here to go through a men's treatment center for substance abuse. And while I was a crisis counselor myself at the time, my life had unraveled due to the high stress and a history of propensity towards substance abuse in my extended family, and my inability to ask for help until the consequences became too much for me to handle. Throughout the support of this community, by members of this community, and by the services offered of healing and wellness, and an environment to connect again with my relationship with God, I get the privilege of contributing tonight as a healthy member of our community, trying to make a difference, and not somebody bound by addiction or hopelessness. I got married in this valley. I hold a management job here, and I bring tourism to this community. My concern is that, and I know that I'm out of time, but my concern to the council members is that during the winter months, these numbers of homeless interactions are growing. I know that I've heard discussions about behind Walmart, but the other camp on county grounds, by Doc Holliday's
Sure.
trail is on county land, and what are we doing about this?
Time.
Adam, thank you very much. I appreciate those comments. I appreciate your struggle with addiction and overcoming it. I can't say how much I appreciate that. Obviously, the homeless conversation is significant. It's really significant. It's much more difficult, and there's no way we could give it any kind of justice in 3 minutes of your time or ours. So it is something this council has talked about extensively over the last 2 years in a number of ways. I would say that if you have specific items that are crimes or violations of health and safety, please give our police department a call and call back in next time if you have specific ideas or thoughts. And so I apologize for cutting you off, but we usually just allow 3 minutes. So, and there we go. There's me taking a whole minute to explain why we only do 3 minutes. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, I will bring it back to council for council comments. Do we have no council comments tonight? Ingrid.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will just mention that I have noticed recently, and certainly with the way that we are going to be upholding term limits on our boards and commissions, just another plug that if those are, community members are out there, if you identify someone in your workplace or your neighborhood you think would be a great advocate for the city or on one of our boards and commissions, please encourage them to submit an application. We want those voices of our community to be represented, and we know there's a lot of great individuals and talent out there, and we would love to have it representing the city.
Thanks, Ingrid. Is there anybody else? Okay, I'll just give one moment to talk about a tragedy that happened for our area a couple days ago. There was 3 gentlemen from Eagle, the town of Eagle, Eagle County, as well, that perished in a avalanche 2 or 3 days ago, I believe. And it's obviously really tragic for Eagle County, because I believe 2 of the gentlemen were employees of Eagle County. But it's also, I think, extra tragic because 2 of the people they're all community leaders. Adam Palmer was an Eagle County employee. He was also a trustee of Eagle, the town of Eagle. Andy Jensen was a co-founder of Bonfire Brewing, and he was also a trustee of Eagle. And Seth Bosung was a Eagle County employee as well. So, we have people like that give so much of their time and their life to serving government and their fellow citizens. I think it's really tragic, and I can't say how devastated I would be if any 2 of you guys, if that happened to our council. It'd be really, really devastating for our community. So I'd just like to take maybe 30 seconds of remembrance for these 3 gentlemen that passed away. All right. Any other comments? All right, seeing none. First item on the agenda this evening is consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve consent agenda?
I would make that motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paula.
Tony, seconded by Paula, excuse me.
Who's Polly?
I like this new name.
Sure.
Any opposed? All right, seeing none, I will assume motion passes unanimously. Next item is item number 11, Planning and Zoning Commission appointments.
Mr. Mayor, I missed the work session and I apologize in interviews, but you were giving me some more information about applicants that I didn't know.
Yeah, I believe, and somebody else can probably speak to this, but I believe that Beatrice Soto withdrew her application as she is intending to move to Newcastle, which would disqualify her from participation. I have a lot of hands. Let's go with Jen first.
Beatrice Soto, who you did actually appoint, has said that she regretfully cannot continue to serve. So we're happy that she's found a place, a home, but sad that she's not going to be on the Planning Commission. So both Joy and Pete Waller have expressed interest in a full-time seat, and you had appointed them previously, very recently, to an alternate seat. So there are 3 seats open, and you can certainly make part of that decision tonight or all of that decision tonight, but just wanted to provide you with that information.
Thanks, Jennifer. Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was actually going to bring that information up. My understanding is that Joy White had applied as part of this cycle to be moved up from alternate to a permanent member. I think between Joy and Pete is a tough thing, but since she at least started the process of actually moving up, I would move that we appoint Joy White, the good name, right? Yeah. Amber Wissing and George Shaver to the 3 permanent positions on the Planning Zoning Commission, or full-time positions on the Planning Zoning Commission.
And I will second, made by Charlie.
Okay, it's moved by Charlie, seconded by Ingrid. Go ahead, Shelly.
I'd just like to comment. I was going to make a motion, but also recommend that we appoint Pete Waller to the full position on the board. Just, I feel like he brings a lot of experience and expertise to the board, and has the time available to put in towards the board. And after watching the last P&Z meeting, I think there's a lot to contribute there. So I would rather see that happen, but we'll see how this vote goes.
All right, Paula, go ahead.
Normally, sorry, I'm muted. Normally we vote on this a different way when we appoint board members, as opposed to this method of seconding, putting a motion and seconding. Usually we all have an opportunity to vote on the candidates there. Is there a reason we're doing it differently tonight?
I
don't think we have ballots.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. But I believe we had voted on this last month, maybe even our second meeting of December, where we did appoint, I thought we appointed, someone help me out with this. I thought we already did this, to be honest. But
we did with Beatrice.
We did, yeah. And I guess I'd prefer that too, to second Paula's, if we could vote on the 2 reappointments and then maybe vote separately on the appointment to the full-time position.
I'm fine with that, but logistically, well, first there's a motion on the table. So if the motioner and the second would care to withdraw that, or we can just take the vote on that. Or if there is a way, let's do this first, if we will. Is there an easy way to pass the slip like we used to when we did this? Probably should have thought about that before the.
I would say we haven't been doing it that way because it's nearly impossible when everybody's in different locations.
Yeah, that's kind of where I had gone with this, is that we can, push this off 2 weeks and come up with some kind of a, Google survey thing to do balloting, But it's very difficult to create the record that we need to ultimately have a record of the vote. If in this format, if you guys aren't like saying aye or raising your hand or whatever. So
Well, why can't we do it Shelley's way, Miss Carl, where we just vote on each one individually? I would.
yeah, I mean, I think that would be fine. Like however you want to do it, but just as long as we have a vote on the record that we have a record of, rather.
And I think in the future, Sarah is saying like she can set up an online form for you to fill out that we might be able to work in. But I would think we would do that. We should do that for like the next one. If that's what you guys want to do.
Just for clarity, Charlie, your motion was to appoint Joy White to the permanent position or the alternate position. Is that your motion?
Yeah, my and maybe it's a wrong gut, but my gut is that we'd reappoint Amber and George to their, give them another term. And my view is I'd like to leave the motion on the table. If it fails, then we know those two, and we can do those two with the other with Pete, and then go that route. Let's get this done. We need to move on. And I'm just trying to make it efficient.
Sure. And so since we have a motion in a second, Ingrid, with this new information, are you still good with the second that you had with Charlie, or would you care to rescind that or make an amendment?
I'm fine with keeping it the way that it is. And then if it fails, then I would prefer to, and I'll just put this out there, is that I would prefer to vote on George and Amber. And then if we need to come up with some system for evaluating, and the challenge is that we have two really good alternates, but we would also need to see, I don't know if we need to put that out to the public as well to see if there's any other applicants at that point too. So I don't know the protocol there. So anyway, I'm fine with doing this motion.
Okay.
Well, give it Ingrid's statement. Why don't I'll withdraw my motion and move that we reappoint George Shaver and Amber Wissing to their positions, and then we can take the other one up separately. That sounds like what people would like to do. Let's do it that way.
And so I'll revise my second as well.
Okay. So I believe the motion is to appoint George Schaefer and Amber Wissing to permanent positions on the planning and zoning. Is that correct? Thumbs up.
Reappoint.
Reappoint. Excuse me. Thank you. All right. I think all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, any opposed? Let the record show the motion passed unanimously, 6-0. All right. Is there a motion for, well, I think you had the floor, so do you want to make a motion again, or?
Why don't we just see by raising a hand how many we have? We got only 6 of us here, so it could be a tie. So we might want to just go quickly and say, okay, how many think that we should appoint Joy? How many think we should appoint Pete? And I agree, we have 2 qualified candidates. I don't think we're going to lose either way, but if we don't have a tie, then we can figure out, we can do it that way. I'm just trying to get through this process.
Yeah, can we just do a motion?
And I think we need to appoint it, and then we advertise for an alternate. I think we need to move one of the alternates up. I don't think we should appoint a new person that has not applied before to a regular position.
So from my understanding, both Pete and Joy are alternates currently, correct?
Yes.
Let's just take a motion.
Okay, I'll move to appoint Joy White to the regular position.
And I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Joy White would be moved as an alternative into a permanent position with planning and zoning. Let's do voice vote. Steve. Bottom left hand. There you go.
Councilor Wisso,
Yes.
Councilor Hershey,
Yes.
Councilor Stepp,
No.
Councilor Willman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kopp,
No.
Mayor Godus.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right. real quick, my vote was, I did not care either way. I just didn't want to have 3-3 locked up on both sides. So that's literally the only reason I put Joy in there instead of Pete. I'm sure they're both great. Just wanted to explain that in case anybody was wondering. Next
The
item.
reality is a lot of the alternates are there and they're acting anyway because somebody's missing. So they're usually pretty active.
And Charlie, for the record, the mayor just said he doesn't care.
I have no preference. Excuse me. Let me speak precisely. I have very little preference. All right. Number 12, Airport Commission appointments. Is somebody going to lead this off, or is that me?
That's you.
Is that me? Well, I'll be late, so we have two, I believe, two openings. Acting airport director Steve Boyd can help me out with this as well. But we have two openings, positions, and we have two applicants. One is a reappointment. Dave Merritt has just concluded his first term, and we also have Joel Shute, who is a new applicant for the Airport Commission. I believe we'll have one vacancy after that if Joel and Dave are reappointed tonight. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, from the staff report, it looks like both Mr. Rippey and Mr. Brown are term limited. So those are two open positions, and Dave Merritt's seat is up and he is reapplying. So there are 3 open seats.
And I will just say for my 30 seconds, Dave Merritt has served. I've served with him on the Airport Commission for the last 4 years. Very knowledgeable. He's not a pilot himself, but loves aviation, loves the airport, lives in the neighborhood. If a plane goes down and takes a wrong hand turn, it's probably coming into his house. So he is very invested in that airport and it just has a lot of history. So I fully support his candidacy. Joel Shute is a new pilot. I think he's had his license for just a couple of years and flies quite a bit, and interviewed him last week. Bright guy. Believe he's also on one of our other commissions, airport.
He's on River.
River.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I would also support him being named as well. Paula, you have your hand up.
Just on procedure, are we going to nominate each one separately, or are we doing them together? Trying to get through this.
Yeah. There's no alternate. I will make the motion. Let's do this. I'll make the motion that we reappoint Dave Merritt and we appoint Joel Shute in one fell swoop to fill those two positions. And if anybody else has significant issues with that, then great.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Thank you, though, Paul. That's a great clarification. It's been moved by myself, seconded by Shelly. Any further conversation? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Let the record reflect as 6-0 unanimous consent. All right. Next one, Arts and Culture Board appointments. Is this Mayor Pro Tem Cops?
Yes, that's me. And we have a similar situation that we had on the airport board. We have 2 applicants. We actually have other seats still open. So thank you for your comments, Ingrid, earlier during council comments. We definitely could use a couple more board members on the Arts and Culture Board. But for tonight, we have Stephanie Davis, who has been a member since we started up the new board, and she's now serving as chairman. She does a great job, and we really have a good group right now. So she's helping to lead that group. We are working on our art plan. So I definitely recommend her for reappointment. And then we have Lauren Arnold, who is actually a librarian at the local library with an interest in the arts. And I would love to get her on the board also. So I recommend both of them for appointment.
Would you even motion them?
I will motion that we reappoint Stephanie Davis and we appoint Lauren Arnold to the Arts and Culture Board.
I'll second that.
I'll second.
You have it, Charlie. All right. It's been moved by Shelly, seconded by Charlie. Any further conversation?
I have one.
Yes, Paul.
I'm just going to I love what Ingrid said earlier today in comments also. But I did have a citizen approach me, and I guilty, it was 6 or 8 months ago, and said their son applied to be the youth representative on the Arts and Culture Board and never heard back. So I just want to make sure that when we get these candidates that we're vetting them, and even if it wasn't the right time, that somebody gets back to them and says, yeah, we'll keep you on file or something like that. So, and we have gone through
Okay.
positions with, I know Catherine and that, and like I said, it was 6 months ago or so, but I think it's something to.
Okay, thanks,
we're-
Paula. And I'm wondering if that was some kind of a communication deal with COVID, because I do remember hearing when Catherine was here that we had a youth applicant, but that the city had reached out and never heard back. So it sounds like we have a disconnect
Could be.
there somewhere. So maybe they can reapply or contact the city.
And I should have brought this up 6 months ago. So I just thought, oh, I'll do it now.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion by Shelly, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let the record reflect. The motion passed unanimously 6-0. All right, item number 14, positive youth development proposal.
I'll step out right now.
I believe we should pull over. I believe both Rob Stein and Anna Cole will be presenting. They're going to be presenting on youth mental health and how we could potentially use tobacco tax funds to fund it.
And I'm going to excuse myself. So if you can just call me back afterwards.
I'll text you, Paula.
Good evening, Dr. Stein.
Good evening, Ms. Cole. I didn't want Anna to feel left out of it either.
We ready to go?
We are ready.
Okay, thank you very much for having us. And we'll keep it short. We know you all are busy. And this builds on, I think, a very good partnership that we've had with the city of Glenwood Springs for a number of years, working together for the health and well-being of our whole community, especially our youth. If you could help me by projecting the slides, I'm not going to kill you by PowerPoint, but Anna and I would like to walk you through, I think, 7 or 8 slides, if that's okay. And while you're working on, is that possible for you to pull them up?
I believe it's possible for you guys.
Anna, can you help me with that? There we go. Thanks.
Anna, your browser tabs look like mine.
Surprised her computer hasn't already crashed. So,
Excuse me, but if you're able to, Anna, zoom that in and maybe go full screen, then everybody can see it. Thank you.
Fantastic. What we're trying to do is make a specific request for funding for a project, but I want to just zoom out a little and give you some context and a bit of history. And I also want to shout out at the outset, Risa Turetsky, who's been working with me and Anna as a thought partner on this project in positive youth development. And you all might remember Risa because she presented to the city council a couple of years ago when you were considering vaping and tobacco use, and a set of policy decisions you made, including taxing tobacco products and also changing restrictions to in an effort to decrease tobacco and vaping use in our valley. And a lot of the communities up and down the valley, not just Glenwood Springs, followed suit with some similar efforts, and some good news is it's paying off. So we wondered what it would look like if we did something similar in addressing the mental well-being of the youth in our community broadly. So we have this vision statement on the next slide, which says every child in our communities has access to evidence-based prevention, intervention, and treatment or response to strengthen positive youth development and mental well-being. That's really our vision or our goal. And we're agnostic as to where or how. We just like to see this as an outcome. But because our schools are where we find our kids, we're proposing that the city fund services that can reach kids in our schools. Any kid who lives in our communities, it doesn't matter what district or school they're enrolled in. The next 4 slides are just to give you a little bit of data, and I'm not going to talk about the numbers so much as first the colors and then just the concepts that they illustrate. The state of Colorado issues a survey on alternating years called the Healthy Kids Colorado Survey on an array of topics about youth health. And we administer it in all of our middle schools and all of our high schools, and we track that data very carefully to monitor how our youth are doing and how our efforts are paying off. And each slide is similarly constructed, the next 3 anyway. The question on the left, keep on that first slide there. The question on the left is about use, so we want that to be low. And the question on the right is about perception of risk or harm from engaging in that behavior. We want them to perceive it as harmful or risky, so we want to see a high number there. And then the school district numbers are the Christmas colors, red and green. So you can see, for example, marijuana use in the past 2 years from 2017 to 2019 increased from 20% to 25%. That is kids who've used it in the past 30 days. So that's an indicator of regular use. The perception on the right of harm stayed about the same. And then the state's colors are blue and yellow. And that just gives you some context of, in this case, our marijuana use is markedly higher than the state's among our youth. The next slide is the same pattern, but it gets to alcohol use. And so there too, we're seeing a slight increase in alcohol use, a slight decrease in perception of harm. And there too, we're looking slightly worse off than the state. Contrary to that, the next slide illustrates our vaping. And there where our community has made a lot of effort, we've seen a marked decrease in use and a strong increase in perception of harm. And there we've even seen greater improvement than the state has, and we attribute that to the efforts of you and other leaders in the community really putting the pedal to the metal and paying attention to this issue. Change is hard and it's slow, but these numbers are quite impressive in terms of how much progress we've seen in a short amount of time by working together on a series of policies and other interventions that have really started to move the needle. And then the final data slide I'm going to share with you, these are 3 markers of just overall mental health. The first is about depression, feeling sad or helpless. And there you can see we're seeing increases in depression. And the second 2 questions are about suicidality, about considering suicide or attempting suicide. And we're seeing increases in suicidality in our youth. So what this tells us, these 4 slides combined, is that we have great concern about the mental well-being of the youth in our communities. The pandemic, we don't have data like this, but we know that people are struggling even more. And the bright news is that when we work together, then we're able to move the needle and contradict the trends. And so that's why we really feel it's important to invest the resources and efforts to see if we can work to make a difference. And I think the next slide is on you. And you're muted. Shelly, I see your face, so can you give me a thumb? Are you able to hear Anna, or is it just me? No.
How about now?
There we go.
There you go.
Hi. Sorry, I had to hit that unmute quite a few times. So my name is Anna Cole. I'm the director of the Family Resource Center of the Roaring Fork School District. So I get to be involved in a lot of the projects that are community facing and rely on community partnerships. And before we get too much into this proposal, I want you to know that a lot of the work and the groundwork for this proposal came from pilot projects and partnerships we've had, like partnerships with the town of Glenwood Springs. And what we found was we were able to partner with a number of different municipalities and grants and counties to staff a community mental health provider in our schools. And so what this means is somebody that's employed by a partner like the Hope Center or Mind Springs or Mountain Family Health Center where that person can provide specialized mental health, behavioral health, prevention, intervention services that are kind of beyond the scope of work of what we do well as a school district and as educators. And so a lot of the ideas for this plan and this attempt to kind of bring these services in a more regional, sustainable way came from these pilot projects that showed us that it's possible, that these community partnerships really increase student access to mental behavioral health, and help us strengthen these webs of connections that really help build really strong, positive social emotional skills in our little kids, that then grow into really strong refusal skills for our older students, and also provide a lot of supports for kids grappling with mental health challenges or substance abuse challenges. And so what we're looking at, and the vision we've been able to pull together, really sees that, you know, what schools can bring to the table is we can be networks and we're hubs because we're the places where kids are. We also can do a lot of prevention education to everybody, and we can do it well. We can also serve to identify kids that are bubbling up because of different needs that are kind of rising to the surface, if there's either behavioral needs or substance abuse concerns. And so we're really good at identifying those kids. Where we get out of our depth as educators is when it comes to moving up for interventions and supports for kids. And that's where we really need our partners. And we found that if those partners can be in our schools, student access is increased, it's more responsive, it's more integrated, it's more trusted, and more effective. And so really, like, our plan is to kind of try to build on the successes we've seen from regional efforts like vaping to really bring these services in a comprehensive, coordinated way into our schools. And so what I want you to see is that this work isn't something that we just rely on external partners. And this left column really shows our commitment to ongoing consistent support through training and funding and staffing and professional development to provide all those services that you see in this left column. And this is kind of a tiered intervention. The way we would talk about this is that the things that you see on the bottom are services that every kid gets no matter what. And then as those kids bubble up and issues, we start to notice issues or concerns are raised, we have additional supports that we provide to some of the students. And you can see right now that we have a couple of these pilot projects going. We have some partnerships that are providing an additional level of service that we really want to invest in and infuse in so that those services can be more sustainable. Our current mix of funding involves support and pilot projects from Eagle County, from the town of Basalt, the town of Carbondale, the Hope Center, individual philanthropy from the Hope Center. The Glenwood Springs marijuana tax was an important part of a partnership that we used to have with Mine Springs at Glenwood Springs High School. And then we currently have some funding from the Colorado Department of Education to staff some positions across our schools. So you can see that it's a big mix and a puzzle piece. This is exciting because it brings a lot of partners together. The challenge is when you look at that expires column, and this is the part that for me as someone who works with partnerships and managing grants, that keeps me up at night. When we see that positions expire, the staff also see that their positions expire. So it makes it really hard for us to maintain staff and to hire and commit and invest in these partnerships because the providers know that this is a grant funded position or it's something we have to renew every year. And so we have high turnover when we don't have that kind of consistent investment and relationship with our providers, which then makes it more difficult for kids, to build those relationships, build connections, have the staff really integrate well with our staff. And it's a challenge. And so we're really trying to address that with this project. And so where we're hoping to land is by working a little more strategically, really building on the strengths of what we saw with the vaping project, with some regional support, collaboration, and investment, that we could get to a point where we could continue to provide all those district services, but add a consistent, sustainable layer of having a dedicated community mental or behavioral health provider in every school. These are folks that, again, are staffed by community partners, not by us. We realize we're maybe not the best equipped. We're great at education, we're great at instruction and working with content standards, but we're not so great with mental and behavioral health therapy and interventions. And so we really need the support of the experts in our community, Mine Springs, Hope Center, Mountain Family have all been great partners with this work. And so what we're looking for is investment so that we can really strengthen this program and try to reach that goal of really increasing access for students to this kind of integrated approach to prevention, education, and intervention, and then services around substance abuse and mental and behavioral health. Rob, what did I miss?
Nothing. I would just close by saying that our specific request is to allocate $150,000 to this effort, 120 of which would go for direct mental health support in our schools. We've found it very successful to partner with Mind Springs, and so we would be providing a Mind Springs therapist in Glenwood Springs Elementary School and Cypress Elementary School to increase the level of servicing that our students are currently getting in our community. And an additional $30,000 of that 150 would go to Youth Zone to increase their services and resources in Glenwood Springs. With that, I think we should just ask for questions or feedback.
Yeah, questions from, whoa, there are some questions. Everybody's hand went up at the same time. Go ahead, Deborah.
I just wanted to make sure the council knows that we fully support this request and we're very comfortable with the budget amount.
Yeah. Let's keep it to questions. I would like to open it up briefly to public comment. This is a lot of money. So if we can keep it to questions and not comments initially, that'd be great. Charlie, go ahead.
Rob, I'm sorry, you said something at the very end, which caused me to raise my hand. How much of this 150 would go to Youth Zone?
30.
Okay, because the reason I've asked the question is they also made historically requests through our grant program, our A&I grant program. Do you know if they're looking to use this instead of the money they get from the grant program, or is this?
This is separate, and part of our concept with Youth Zone is that we integrate those services more directly with our other activities. So for example, a student might get caught vaping or something in the school, that we have a more direct referral to Youth Zone, and we, instead of sending the kid to them, we start bringing Youth Zone into our schools where the kids already are, so that we can integrate those kinds of interventions. That's the concept here. So I think it's more of a pilot of a different way of operating that integrates more with Youth Zone services.
So that 30,000, that would be bringing one of those persons from Youth Zone into the school.
Yeah, or for, that doesn't fund a full-time position, but it allows us to, have those kinds of programs, classes, sessions, restorative interventions, restorative justice in our school. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Tony.
I guess I have a question for Anna. As Rob knows, I know a school counselor pretty well, but is something that you're also going to be addressing is the trauma that we've just been reading about in the newspapers from COVID and deaths, and we have little children losing parents, and it goes beyond like, I'm sad because I can't go to school and I can see my friends. It seems to be a much bigger crisis. Is that something that you're concerned about, Anna, and that'll be addressed here? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And great question. I think one of the interesting things about the graphs that you saw at the beginning was that those are all pre-COVID, and we won't, that survey doesn't come out for another year. We are super aware, and our counseling teams have been super aware of the needs of kids right now, that you're right, those mental health, the trauma that I think we're collectively experiencing, as well as some of the more insidious impacts that the crisis has had on, in its really disparate impacts on different families, and the way it has not impacted us all the same way economically, has been really horrifying for our kids and families. And so, again, my emphasis, and certainly in family services, is always about access, and how do we eliminate any barriers as many barriers as we can to getting kids connected to what they need, whether it's physical health or mental health. And so, what we found is that for kids, especially those little ones who do have a hard time maybe articulating where they're, I mean, they all do. I don't know. I have a 15-year-old and it's really hard to get anything out of him. And so, all those kids, what we've learned is that they do have trusted relationships at school. School is where they feel really safe. It's why we've worked so hard to keep our schools open and worked with the community and the counties to try to keep schools open, because we know we're able to be tracking kids, checking in on them, providing services. And we're feeling the gaps of not having mental health, especially at our elementary schools right now. Our grants are really focused on the middle schools and high schools, which is great, but those little guys definitely need the familiar face. What's exciting about this program and these projects is that when we have the community health provider, somebody from Hope Center or Mind Springs, they bring a whole skill set that's really focused on those sorts of traumas that you speak to. And so to our staff, they are an expert that can really provide a service that our staff feels maybe unprepared or not qualified to serve. But to our kids, they just look like another friendly face. It feels like somebody from school that they trust. They know, oh, that's her office, and it's a really fun place to be. And so for the kids, that continuity of these kinds of roles is really powerful. And so we definitely see it as something that will help our kids and communities weather the impacts of this crisis, because I think we're only now even beginning to scratch the surface of what that kind of collective trauma of the last 11 months is gonna do for the impact on kids.
Thank you so much, Anna. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony. Shelly.
Thank you, Anna and Rob. It's a great presentation, and I really support using our tobacco tax dollars to support our youth in the community. Most of my questions go to, I kind of want to get a feel for where we are with some of the programs we funded in the past, and is there overlap there? And some of these questions Deborah might be able to answer too, but I seem to recall we gave some funding for a medical setup program with Mountain Family. So I'm wondering where that's at, if that has come to fruition, or and then my other question was on, we have some marijuana tax funding that we have funding that I'm not sure that it expired. It may have been kind of reallocated to some other schools, which Deborah can speak to. I know we had funding, I think, at Riverview and at the charter school at Two Rivers. So just wondering how that works and if there's overlap, and I'm hoping we're still going to support through the marijuana tax also.
I'll let Deborah start on that, and then I can give you an update on the school-based health center.
Okay, thanks.
The marijuana tax money was divided into two different programs. One was for the community center, which we ran that last year until we shut down the community center. Right. I think the money is still budgeted for this year, right? But okay, we're just kind of seeing how that goes. And that was about $25,000. The other pot was for Mind Springs, and it was kind of in partnership with the school system, but it's ended up in, you guys got a presentation, I want to say 2 meetings ago, and they're focusing those dollars right now on Yampa Mountain High School, St. Stephen's, and Two Rivers. And so it's no longer, the counselors are not being paid for within the school district.
Okay, so they're the separate schools. All right. I knew there had been a change there, and I wasn't sure how that was driven, but that helps clarify that. Okay, thanks. And yeah, hopefully we can restart that community center pass program too once we get back to a little more normal.
I think that is definitely the intention. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Deborah.
And that thing about, funding, stopping and other sources starting is what Anna described that keeps her awake at night. And so that's part of this, right, that we get enough of a consistent level of funding that we can sustain our most important programs. And of course, we really want to continue aggressively to pursue other opportunities like state grant funding, which often has a 3-year window. But, again, we'll focus on our priorities. And as those other funding streams come and go, we sustain a consistent level of commitment for the greatest needs. The other thing you asked about was the school-based health center. So you all funded a capital investment in improving this clinic space to open a school-based health center in Glenwood Springs High School. And I remember presenting to you live, so I think it was probably about this time a year ago, right before the
I think so.
And so since then, we have there have been some delays that are related to the pandemic with construction, but that project is underway and will be completed this summer. As you know, the school's been in session, and Mountain Family Health Centers, who are the sponsors, so they operate the clinic, had some federal glitches in getting the approval. It was delayed a little bit, but it is now approved and up and running. And so they're practicing telehealth, and they have some limited hours in other spaces, but that clinic will be completed over the summer so that it will be operating at full scale in the fall.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rob. That just helps me figure out all the pieces.
Yeah, and you can see the construction hat and vest in the background because we have a few projects like that that I'm acutely taking an interest in and monitoring closely. But that program will include integrated medical, behavioral health, and dental health all in one site. So that will also, bolster the mental health services that students are getting.
Awesome. Thank you. It's great.
Thanks, Shelly. Any other questions? All right, I'll turn over briefly, or it could be like a long time, I guess, to citizens for public comment. All right, seeing none, I will bring it back for a motion and or further discussion.
I would make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve this funding. I know that Deborah noted that we have it and that staff is supportive of it. I think that this is a very important part. And, we heard a little bit about COVID, but I think this is very important. So I would make that motion. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Shelly.
All right, been moved by Tony, seconded by Shelly. Further comments?
Just quick comment. I just think it's a great program, and I want us to see, when I look at that chart next time, reoccurring application every year, not terminated. So.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Let's do this the formal way. It is a chunk of money. Acting City Clerk Steve Boyd.
Counselor Willman.
Yes.
Counselor Stepp.
She recused
Oh,
herself.
she's recused. Sorry. Counselor Hershey.
Yes.
Counselor Wusso.
Absolutely.
Mayor Godes. Yes.
Yes, correct.
And Mayor Pro Tem Cobb.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. Rob, Anna, thank you very much. I also want to say, I think maybe I said this before to you, Rob, is our jobs are so easy compared to your school board as you guys navigated that COVID crisis. I know I sat in on one of those meetings, there was 200 people, 200, not a misprint or a misspeak. Our jobs compared to your board are easy, and I will never say our city manager's job is easy compared to yours. But maybe for like the 3 months that you guys were really struggling with it, it might have been comparable. So thank you for all you guys, both of you, and the school board and all the administration does for my children and the rest of the community and Ingrid's children.
And all the teachers, Mr. Mayor, who didn't envision themselves as being first responders and on the front lines, and now they are. Thank
Yeah. Our whole entire community is so fortunate. So thank you.
you. To have such great educators.
Really do.
And my children who are grown and gone, but thank you.
I can't thank you enough. And the parent attendance is a reflection of how much they care about their kids and your investment in their youth and their well-being. They know it and they appreciate it too. And I just want to echo how fortunate we are to have such a great partnership with the school district and the city, especially in times like this, that we can work together is so important. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for the time and your engagement.
Thank you, Anna and Rob.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, before you move on to the next item, I received a request from Councilman Davis, who cannot be at the meeting tonight. And I know we have people on the waiting on this matter, but he wants to continue item number 18 to the next city council meeting. For you and Councilor Hershey, who I think did not get a good chunk of that work session today, I think we have to take action by our next meeting, but I think it could be delayed one meeting. I think it's a very important issue, and I think we should have Councilman Davis. I know he's got some real strong views in that present, and if we're going to continue that, we got to do it now so people aren't waiting for us to get to that, which is almost at the end of our agenda. I would have brought it up during the changes agenda, but I didn't get the text till after we went through that section of the agenda. So
Is that a motion?
I would move.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would move to continue. Thank you, Tony. I would move to continue item 18 to our second meeting in February.
No, thank you, Charlie. I just wanted to second you, but I was waiting for you to move. Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Further conversation? All right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
I'll say aye, but can I ask one quick question, Jonathan, too, after I know we're continuing.
Passes unanimously, 6-0. Go ahead, Tony.
I'm sorry. But Deborah, I know you were concerned about the timing and Charlie mentioned it, but we're good for doing this in 2 weeks, or were we going to do it in 3 weeks at a special meeting? Or what's the timing so people who are waiting know when to be here for Blake?
We'll put it on the next agenda, and we really advise you to make a decision at the next agenda.
All right. I think it's important enough to the community that it deserves all 7 of us being able to, like Councilor Willman said, Tony and I were not at a large portion of, at least me, I was in portions of it as I was coming in and out. And so I think for Councilor Hershey and I to be able to review the entire presentation and the questions, I think would be helpful for us.
And Steve, too.
Absolutely. To make a better informed decision on behalf of the community in 2 weeks. I think that that's wise. All right. We are on to item number 15, City Council meeting interpretation.
That would be me. Okay, with this item, I was really trying to get from you guys what you're generally looking for. And then I was asking for the ability to go and like negotiate that. So I gave you kind of a range of prices. I think last year, a couple months ago, you asked me to look into what it would take to do translation of city council meetings. It took me a little while and I apologize for that, but coming back, there's a range of things we can do. I think the highest standard is simultaneous translation. And that is when, if you were on the December 16th meeting with Chief Darris, when it's when you can pick your language, and then we have people translating. That typically takes 2 people, so it is more expensive, but it allows questions to be asked and the presentation to occur in both languages. So I feel like from what you asked, that is what you were looking for, but it might not be. So I kind of wanted to give you a range. It's definitely more expensive to do it that way because it's 2 people rather than 1. And then I also kind of wanted to get an idea, like, are you just looking for it for city council meetings? Do you also want to have work sessions included and special meetings? Or do you kind of just want to save it for, very important special meetings or outreach attempts? There is no wrong answer here. And I kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. I did reach out to Carbondale. They are doing simultaneous translation. They think it is meeting the goals of council. They don't think it has a huge following yet, but they're not 100% sure.
We have Paula, Tony, and then Charlie in that order. Go ahead, Paula.
Deborah, thank you. And thank you for sending all of the cost over. I just did back of the napkin kind of calculating. And if we went simultaneous with what you projected for meetings, that's about $27,000 a year. Is that did I come up with the right amount? It's better for me in big figures. So I was trying to figure that out.
I would think that is if we're going with the most expensive option for everything.
Okay, so that at least gives me an idea of a range of how much money we're committing to annually, at the most. Okay.
And I was just trying to give you guys the big picture like that. Yes.
Okay, that was my question.
Tony, questions?
Deborah, do you see this, or maybe Steve could answer this, as would this be occurring post-COVID? I mean, I think it'd be different. I know how interpretation works with the courts and WebEx and Zoom. Would this continue in person, or there'd be someone actually in the council chambers? Or would this be something where somebody logs on to the, like on my TV, I can go from ESPN to ESPN to Sportes and listen to the Super Bowl on Sunday in Spanish if I want? Is it that kind of thing where you change the channel, or how do you envision it? Or is it just totally open? Thank you.
I think it is totally open, because I think you guys are still deciding once we get back into council chambers, if you want to have the Zoom component go on. So I don't think you've totally made that decision. I think Alyssa is coming before you guys at the next meeting or the meeting after that, I think, to talk more about what you want to see in council chambers. So I think I need that answer first.
All right. Tony, are you good? Great. All right. Charlie, go ahead. Charlie Woman. Bottom left. There you are.
I have to find my damn mute button. Give me a break. I actually was going to try to reach out to Beatrice today, because she was someone I thought might be well connected in the Hispanic community. And maybe, Deborah, you've done this. I guess the question, have we, and I appreciate with the information that Carville just gave us, because my idea right now is, I don't know whether people would, we would get more participation by our Hispanic community, which we really need to do. We need to increase our diversity on the council and boards and commissions, and this might be a way to get there. It's a large expenditure. I mean, I think our total council budget is 80 or 90,000 a year, so this would add a third to the council budget. But I think we need to look at that. And I was curious if I'm sorry, I can't ask a question tonight. Have we reached out to anybody to see if there's an interest in the Hispanic community, or is there no way to do that?
Yeah, I've reached out to both Beatrice and then also Alex Sanchez to get the, to ask who I should talk to about it. In the past, what Alex specifically has told me is you kind of need to start this, not be disappointed when you don't have a lot of people, but the only way to grow it is to start doing it. So do I ever think, we only have so many people from the public attending meetings anyway. That is probably not going to change unless it impacts somebody's life. But you got to start somewhere.
Mr. Mayor, is this time for comment or just questions?
I think let's throw some comments in there too. Sure.
All right, so my only comment I want to add is I'm on the CML board's diversity subcommittee, and CML's push this year, the president of the CML board, Bob Widner, pushes to increase diversity throughout the municipalities, not just in the city councils and boards commission, but in employees and things like that. So you're going to be seeing a bunch of things come out. I think their April magazine is going to deal with diversity issues. So I think it's a real important issue right now throughout the country. And I guess my support is we should, even though it's expensive, we should take a shot at the full-blown thing and see what happens, and try for a year and see, for the rest of this year maybe, and then see what happens. That's my view.
Thank you, Charlie. Ingrid.
And I too am along the lines of Charlie, and just that I would love to get some feedback from that community. Ultimately, I did actually have a chance to listen in with Chief Darris on the last one, and I felt like participation was great. My concern is that the money could be better spent in other areas with that same community and the inclusionary goal. I'm wondering if there's an alternative that we're just not thinking of. Like, if we do have a YouTube channel and the meetings are available, could they by request with a number of days afterwards be interpreted? So we're not doing it unless it's requested just initially, or some other derivative. And my only reasoning behind that is because I think for me, a priority would be more signage around the community from, just our recreational opportunities that they have, like maybe signs be more bilingual before we do meetings that potentially aren't even being watched. So that's I want it, I'd love it all, but ultimately I'm kind of prioritizing and saying maybe there's other areas that we could have the translation services and, really cater a little bit more to making sure we're communicating well with all our community members. That's just my thoughts.
Thanks, Ingrid. Shelly, then Tony, then Paula.
Okay, Deborah, I had a question, and I guess, so if we did the simultaneous, would we then have two versions of the meeting on the YouTube channel, like a saved, one in Spanish and one in English? Or how does that work?
I am not 100% sure. Jen might know more since she's
Okay.
popped up.
Maybe Jen knows.
I think it is a little bit of a challenge in the Zoom to make it perfectly happen. We've had some, sometimes when it hasn't worked, but yes, you can basically have two recordings, one that's in English, one that's in Spanish. When we go direct to YouTube, it would, if you had somebody who was speaking in Spanish, it would be the language that they're speaking. So when we have done it, when it's simultaneously interpreted, when it goes straight to YouTube or to Facebook, it would be, the Chief Dare speaking Spanish and then me speaking English.
Okay.
But we can do a recording of the Zoom all in Spanish and all in English. And another option that is available, we have been doing this when we have made videos, is that we can do the subtitles in Spanish. We send it to a service and then they give us the file and it subtitles it, like you have the closed captioning in Spanish. So we could do that as well.
Okay. And I don't know which one would be preferred over the other, but I guess that can be figured out later on. And what I've heard as far as feedback is, we do want to just continually work on inclusion. And I see this as kind of a chicken or the egg thing, right? Who knows which will come first? There may not be a huge demand right now, but that may be because it's only being offered in English. And so I think it's important if we did a year or two of trial with this and see if we build more inclusion and more understanding for what's going on in our community government. And maybe we'll get more participation from the Spanish speaking community. So I would love to see that. And I think it's worth trying for that budget. I've also heard just feedback from a couple of meetings that I've been in that one of the concerns is that our emergency announcements for, say, fire evacuation, and especially if we're upcoming thinking about any rain and flood events, if we're going to have emergency notifications and that kind of thing, those need to go out in both languages. And I've heard feedback that doesn't happen. So I think that's a real important thing to work in, as well as what Ingrid brought up about the signage, which I know we're continuing to work on getting all of our bulletins and announcements out with English and Spanish, but I think increasing signage, say on our recreational trails and things like that, would also be good. So I know there's a budget that's allotted to this, but I think it's with the percentage of our community that is our native Spanish speakers, it's about time we tackled this. So I'm supportive of going with the real-time translation.
Just as a point of interest, thank you, Shelly, but as a point of interest, sorry, kind of jump in real quick, Tony, is a lot of those emergency notifications that were not in Spanish, at least the feedback I've heard or the online comments I've seen, were specific to the Grizzly Creek fire, and that was with Garfield County EMS. That's not us. So
Right, but if Garfield County isn't going to do it, then I think if we can figure out a way to do it for our city residents, we should.
Absolutely, and I was going to say, there's also, when we have a water main go out, which tends to happen these days, or we have something else that's electricity's down for whatever. Deborah, do we typically, or have we been putting out those emergency notices in Spanish as well?
I would say we have been trying. Are we hitting it at 100%? No. Are we getting better? Absolutely. Even for the Grizzly Creek fire, I believe there was a Colorado Sun article last week. Mina did indeed reach out and get press releases translated, so that it happened quickly after the fire started.
Great.
So we've been improving along. And we are working on signage going up for recreational amenities in Spanish as well.
Well, I think outreach too. I don't know how much we include announcements and things on the Latino radio stations, making sure that we're hitting those as well as, the usual suspects.
And I don't know if we've done that much beyond emergency stuff, but we get a little better all the time.
All right, Tony, tu hablo.
Gracias, señor. So, my experience with this, I really have to lean more towards what Ms. Rousseau said. And Charlie, maybe you can appreciate, when I've seen interpretation in the courts, it's on demand. And I know it'd be great, Shelly, if we could just do everything we wanted to do, but we just can't afford it. And to just spend money in the hopes, that somebody's listening. Certainly, if it's a question of national, or of citywide interest, something very important, absolutely. And if there's a neighbor, like we put up Blake tonight, but let's say there's a neighbor who lives in that area and says, look, I'm monolingual Spanish, I need interpretation, I would have no problem with that. But just to spend all this money to interpret, I know we all think we're super popular and this is the most popular show on Thursday night, but it's actually not. I think it's Young Sheldon. So I don't know that and that isn't, you can hear that interpreted, but I don't know that there's a large demand, and just putting it out there to get the demand just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. In the court system, if Charlie and I have a trial together and everyone speaks English and all the witnesses speak English and the defendant and all the people who are interested in the case, including somebody who just wants to watch, speaks English, then there is no interpreter. If there is, people have a constitutional right to have what they want interpreted. So it's more of an on-demand thing. Otherwise, it'd be cost prohibitive. My other concern is, and Ingrid touched on this a little bit, is consecutive versus concurrent. I talk really fast and I get yelled at by interpreters. While we're talking, you're expected somebody to do this concurrently. How does that work? Is there a separate audio that they're listening to? If not, it has to be consecutive. And I can tell you that is a time drain that takes forever, because you have to talk and then the person interprets. So I think that this is something that we should really consider more strongly before we go ahead and spend $26,000 or $27,000 to interpret for nobody who's listening. I know a large, Shelly's correct, I think it's 25-30% of this community is Spanish speaking, but a lot of that number is bilingual. And every day, people learn English and become more integrated in the community and learn the language. Certainly we should reach out to everybody, but I think where I really agreed with Ingrid is that this money could be so much better spent on signage, on making access to the rec center and other things, on what Shelly mentioned about emergency messaging and stuff. That's, to me, much more important than whether someone hears about, who we appointed to P&Z. While that's important, it's not as important as some other issues. And I think in this limited budget case, we should focus our dollars more laser-like. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Paul, then Ingrid.
I had a question before, but I didn't know we were going into comments, so I'm glad to have this opportunity. So a third of our population, or almost a third, is a Hispanic community, Latino community. And from my conversations in the community and feedback in different venues that I'm involved in and campaigns, the feedback I have gotten, and in particular, somebody like Beatrice Soto, who I talked a lot about this with, is there's a fear to engage. There's a sense of alienation. There's a sense of separation. And Glenwood taking a leadership in this and saying, we understand that there's part of our population, our voting population, our citizens aren't engaging because they don't feel like they're a part of this community. And I think it's really important that we open the door to that. That's allows them to participate in anything, whether we do it simultaneously or it's a post recording, but an opportunity for them to listen and understand what's going on. In case in point, just I think Tony brought this up just a minute ago, is, when you look at Blake Street, I know there's, a large Hispanic neighborhood, a large contingency here in our neighborhood, and none of them have spoken up. And is it because they don't know what's going on? Because there isn't stuff out there presented to them easily so they can digest it and make a response. So even if we don't do the simultaneous, I think we should put our foot forward and at least allow something so that people can go back and see what's being said and make some decisions and be at a next meeting if something concerns them, and make it feel normal. That's where we make a change, is when we start making things feel normal. So yeah, it's going to be abnormal when we start it, but in the long run, it's going to become normal, and it engages more of our community.
Thanks, Paula. Ingrid.
So recently, obviously, I've had kids at the different schools, mostly Glenwood Elementary, Glenwood Middle School, and a little bit at the high school now. And at some point in time, they integrated a system where they have interpretation services available on request, so that parents can sit in an audience, and whatever their primary language is, they have the ability to celebrate, whatever event their children are partaking in. But it is by request. And so what I hear there is that maybe we need to have a better plan than just, which I commend you and thank you for getting the costs on some of these opportunities that we could do for translation services. But maybe we need to have a little bit more information. Maybe we need to understand the need. Maybe we need to even get some feedback from community members on what would serve them well. And then maybe we need to make a plan that we integrate it over time rather than just overnight. And only because that way we can maybe spread our efforts in different areas that better serve the community on a whole. And then over time, we can kind of move towards the direction that serves like this community best, because we'll have integrated their feedback and really have a more holistic reaction in response to this. That's just my suggestion.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, I will turn it over to public comment if we have anybody from the public that would like to comment on this item. Because why not, right? Okay. Seeing none, I guess you're looking for direction. We're not looking for official motion, but would you like it as a motion, Deborah?
Considering I heard about 6 different things, yes.
Okay.
And I said, and there's no wrong answer here. We could start small. We could continue just to do, we've been doing this with special meetings all throughout COVID. And I think we're planning to do it this year too, as we continue on. So it's not like if we're not going to stop expanding and doing better, regardless of what you guys decide tonight. So
let me throw something out there. I didn't comment on this, but it seems it's very easy to split the baby when everybody's already spoken. You can be the guy in the middle, has all the great ideas. But I really do appreciate what Tony is saying, and it is a chicken or the egg thing. I think that we are a little bit, this community, this council, not this council, but our entire city, we don't have 20 years of experience doing this. We have, generations of families, Latino families, Spanish language families in this community. But really, guys, we haven't really started to take this up as something that's been important until like really this council. So I think that's a compliment for everybody here. And that's not a knock on anybody else, but I think we're playing catch up a little bit. So my suggestion would be that we do, I don't think we need every work session right now. I don't think that we need every board and commission, and I don't think that's on the table. But I guess I'm in the kind of walk before we run and see how it goes, see what the response is. So for that reason, I would propose not the full Cadillac 27,000 simultaneous. I do think simultaneous is the way that it needs to go. My wife's in public health. She is a public information officer, and that's the standard. Anything else, and it is, you're trying to do some feel good stuff. So I guess my proposal would be, I think there's a $12,000, let's see, for just council meetings from 6 to 10 p.m. simultaneous interpretation at $130 an hour would be $12,480. And can I ask real quick from staff, what is the difference? There's two different rates, $130 an hour from Natalia Lupi Pieta, and then there is a $65 an hour one from Caitlin Johnson Aquino and Elizabeth Velasco. What's the difference between those two numbers? That would be helpful for me, but
I would have to call them. That's why I'm saying don't get too focused on the numbers. I just kind of wanted to give you a broad range to see. And then I was going to call, and once I figured out what you wanted, I was going to drill down deeper.
Well, I'll just speak for myself. That's what I want. I would want at a minimum baseline simultaneous interpretation, the thing that I said, just for council meetings right now. If we get some good feedback or not, we can always have this conversation in 6 months when we're back in person. I think the world's going to change in 6 months, hopefully for the good. So it might be a slightly different conversation. So that would be my opinion, and I would actually put that up as a motion. Yes, ma'am.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Shelly Kopp. Is there?
And just to clarify, Jonathan, that's for simultaneous translation of just our main council meetings at this point.
That is correct.
And also kind of upping our game, and as we're doing with notifications and things.
That's not part of my motion, but
part of tonight. Okay.
That's encouraged.
Would that include special meetings of council, not work sessions, but special meetings?
Yes. So, special sessions we do. Yes, we have one this month, but typically we're doing those 2-3 times a year. Maybe if it's a big year, 4 times a year. So I don't see that as a reason not to. So it's been.
I tend to. I just my comment. I'm sorry. Should have raised my hand. My comment is I tend to agree with Paul. I think we need to be leaders, and we should get out there and do this and be proactive. This is a good investment in a third of our community. So I'll probably support this motion, but I think we should. I think it should be further.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other comments? Acting City Clerk Steve Boyd. Let's take it. Thank you.
Yes, I actually think that maybe my concern is that we would do these translation services and then we don't have the money in the budget to actually get an outreach program going so that people even know we're doing this. And then the money will be for naught. So my inclination would be to, give the 12,000 and change, but maybe bump it a little bit to give some opportunity for us to communicate with the community, and just make sure that they know and that we're touching on the right audience so that we can actually get some value from these. So
I agree. I will incorporate maybe not the monetary part into my motion, but the, Deborah, a lot of this is Deborah is going to go back to these people and say, here's what we got going. Here's the, what we want them to do. I think we're all hearing that we want there to be comprehensive publicity around this. We want there to be a continuing, make sure we have translation services for other meetings on demand. I think we also want to have signage. We want to have bulletins, not bulletins, excuse me, not Catholic Church, press releases. We want to have those things. So, I think a further conversation in this partnership with these translators would be, I think, something I would like you to explore as well. I'm not going to include it in the overall motion, but I think what you said is something that I would reflect as well. Any other comments? Okay. That being said, Acting City Clerk Steve Boyd.
Okay. Counselor Hershey.
No.
Wusso?
No.
Godis?
Yes.
Cobb?
Yes.
Willman?
Yes.
Step?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see, what's next on the agenda? Oh, an easy one, inclusionary housing update. Who is this Jen?
I thought it was Carl.
I could be we more wanted to just let you know that you gave us some direction to get this moving. We went to the Planning Commission last week and got some good input from them that we're incorporating in to the proposed ordinance that'll be coming to you at the next meeting. That was really almost in a nutshell. We just wanted to make sure, because we knew it was a priority for you guys to see some regulations to start talking about, that we wanted to let you know that that was continuing to move forward and that it would be coming up at the next meeting. So it's going to be great to have a full council, hopefully, for that discussion. And, we're trying to pull together some additional information so you guys can kind of see programs that have been successful and what that has taken, not only on the regulatory side, but on the public investment side, because most of the programs that Jen and I have worked with that have been successful in other areas require some public side investment to make those things happen. So we're going to try to give you a full suite of information so you're really looking at something. My goal is not to have something that is not, I don't want to just kind of go back to where we were at in 2002 or 2003 and then unsuccessfully launch this in the long term, because I think we now know that there are a lot of other moving pieces that we need to include. So that's the update in a nutshell. But do want to get you guys thinking about it. And we also want to make sure that the public knew, by us talking about it tonight, that we're going to be talking about it in depth at the next meeting. So just trying to get as much participation as we possibly can, because I think it's it's an important subject, certainly one that I think every one of us has a conversation about almost every day with somebody, is affordability of living in the community. So that's kind of where we're at.
Shelly.
I just had a question for Carl and Jen, and just wondering, have we kind of put on notice any developers that have been talking to the city about, developments that they might be working on, not so much ones that are in the door yet, but ones that are thinking about it, just so they kind of have a heads up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've had those, conversations. I mean, obviously we have a couple of large scale developments that have been submitted and now are live applications in the planning department. Obviously these regulations wouldn't directly apply to those, but certainly they are, one's an annexation, so that's a little bit of a different conversation to have, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think that it is something that the development community, both large and small, we really need to have a conversation about. I will tell you that, we're seeing large scale development more so than we are, even 5 years ago. I think we were seeing, duplexes, not 300 unit developments. And now we're seeing 300 unit developments. So the developers we're working with are not as local as they once were.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Well, guys, you're killing my agenda here. All right, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, 18, we have continued to the next meeting. Item 19, report from city administration. Is that time of the evening?
You missed 17.
Yeah, we missed 17.
Oh, man, I was in the home stretch. Gosh, dang it. Okay.
Which I believe is Brian, along with, we have some, I'm assuming Mr. McGregor and Mr. Maple as well.
I will.
It might just be Brian doing a presentation, I think. I'm not sure who all we have.
So am I only promoting Brian then?
I think ask Brian who needs to have up.
Okay.
Mayor, yeah, could you also promote our park superintendent, Dan Roper?
Yes.
So we met with Glenwood Land Company last year. We presented this just real briefly in our work session with the Parks and Recreation Commission with council last time, just to give you a heads up that we'd be bringing this to you. So just to rehash and give you kind of an overview, Glenwood Land Company has about 45 acres of what they're referring to as a Silver Sage Preserve, and about 18 of these acres currently are located within Garfield County. This area has been established for quite a while with heavily used social trails, and there's some pretty good views up there. We also have access roads to our water tanks up there as well. And as part of the conservation of these parcels in this proposal, we would facilitate an extension of the existing trails down to Airport Road, and that would create about an almost 2-mile loop, hiking loop trail. We've been on site with Glenwood Land Company and Mike, Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers as well. We've also met with the engineering and community development departments as well as our public works, looking at the proposal, the trail connections, and how those would integrate in with the South Bridge improvements as well as the Midland Corridor, and how that would play into some of the proposed development of the adjacent properties there for more affordable housing development. We also presented this to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and they were generally in favor of the idea. They wanted to have some additional meetings to talk about the terms of what that agreement would be, and make sure that this taking on this conservation easement would be in the best interest of the city. And we've looked at all the pros and cons of it, just so there's no impacts or budgetary issues that might come up in the future. One of the issues we wanted to talk about with council tonight, we just want to present the idea, give you, in fact, let me share my screen here so you can see what we're looking at. All right, can you see that all right?
Yes.
So give you an idea of where this parcel is in relation to Airport Road. The improvements we would make connecting 4 Mile Road to Airport Road to bypass having to go down to that intersection, which isn't the safest for bikers. And that 18-acre portion that's within Garfield County, we've had some discussions with Mike and also with Carl about pros and cons of annexing that portion. Our recommendation would be to annex that in. but we're looking for council's direction on this opportunity for you guys to ask any questions that you might have. And then, like I said, we're going to be meeting again with Glenwood Land Company. We'll also have a representative from the Parks and Recreation Commission. I believe Andy Mueller was the one that was selected to do that, to talk about what the terms of this agreement would look like and just vet it out before we would bring it back to council for approval. Dan, do you want to add in anything with that?
Yeah, Brian, I think just what we had shared with the commission last evening, it is a great opportunity to preserve land on the south end of town, and also allow access to open space for those residents down there, especially as things grow in the Cardiff neighborhood. And it legitimizes that use. It is an area that is heavily used right now by residents. And I do agree, it is a great opportunity to connect Airport Road to 4 Mile Road. Although we know that we won't keep all serious road cyclists off of 4 Mile, it will allow access for other recreational users and residents of 4 Mile Ranch as well too. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. I think Brian's right that we do have some things to work through, but it's good first steps here.
One of the things that the commission really wanted to explore was right now this proposal to go along with it would be open space and trail improvements. It's pretty faint. You can see along underneath that overlay where some of those social trails are, but we would make some improvements to the surfacing of these access road bypass trails, and then put in some of these additional ridge trail lines, about a mile-long trail, this connector trail here, and then this switchback trail that goes through the 5 acres that are going to go to that adjacent property to make that loop. Parks and Rec Commission did want to explore what other recreation uses could be put up here in the future, and make sure we had the best interest in whether it's protection of this area, if we wanted to use it for recreational access, or what some of those limitations might be. Carl, do you have anything to add as far as the discussion around annexing that portion that's in the Garfield County?
No, I don't. I just think from the standpoint of kind of management and particularly enforcement of our rules and regulations as to that section that's still in the county, it just simplifies our life a lot. We always struggle, trails are not necessarily the highest enforcement priority for for us either, as a law enforcement agency with so many things going on. But it does mean that when we do need to take some kind of an action, it is within our jurisdiction, rather than trying to kind of explain what's going on to the sheriff's office. So from that standpoint alone, as well as just simplicity and grant funding and things like that we might be seeking, it narrows down the number of partners that we have to work with to accomplish that.
And Brian, I think it's also worth mentioning that that the property owner has worked with a land swap with the property owner along Airport Road on the south end there with IRMW to allow a trail easement between RMW and Grand River. So we have access to Airport Road as well too.
Okay, let's see.
We do have representatives from Glenwood Land Company that are here if council has any questions for them.
It's a good transition. We do have some questions. I don't know who the questions are for or about, but Paula, Charlie, and then Ingrid. Go ahead, Charlie. Or Paula. Go ahead, Paula. Sorry.
All right. I love our trails in our town, and I have hiked along those social trails. I visualize the whole thing as you guys talk about it. But Brian, as I look at this, we've had a lot of discussions last summer and fall about taking on additional park land in regards to the land behind Walmart and working out that kind of exchange. And I always had the sense that the biggest hurdle was the time and staff and money to take on additional parkland. And this looks exactly like what we're doing here. So can you just clearly differentiate between the two? And then number two, as part of that, because I know this is the one big problem behind Walmart, do we have a homeless population now that uses any of this area? So those two questions are the ones I'm concerned about.
And so you already highlighted what the difference is there. On Lookout Mountain, all along there behind Walmart, there are a number of both abandoned and active encampments. We do have transients that are currently there. We had a fire last year in an area, and we have a transient who's back there camping in the exact 50 feet from where that fire was. So that's the big difference, is that we do not have active encampments or even abandoned encampments within this 45 acre parcel. So there's not a cleanup effort that's needed here. It would just be some trail improvements and then just basic maintenance of those trails. I don't anticipate that we would do any winter clearing of it, although this might be an additional area that we could put in, that we could do some trail grooming for Nordic skiing or things like that.
And do you have costs for the staff, the improvements, the staff time it's going to take? Because even if you don't do winter clearing, it's still going to take time to take care of a park. That was part of the discussion last year, is that you have a limited availability of staff, especially in the time of COVID. But I just, I'm
absolutely in a designated maintained park like Sopris or Two Rivers, that's a very big difference from in terms of maintenance and staff hours from an open public space like this. Because there will be probably an increased presence, we might monitor it and look for maybe trash services at a trailhead. But that's about, other than a yearly or biannual maintenance and then potential trash services, or even a portalet perhaps, that'd be about it. There's no mowing, there's no irrigation systems, we don't have any infrastructure in here that would have to be maintained.
And this is a total gift to us, or are we paying for this property?
Yes. So, right, this would be gifted to the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Charlie.
Thank you. I had kind of the same question Paula did. And I do think that, I think it's a good idea. I would also encourage, if we're going to do it, that we annex the property. I think it only makes sense if we're going to have it, but we need to have the regulatory and enforcement. We've heard about that being a problem in other places. So I would want to know what the cost of trail improvements and kind of annual costs are, because I think that is an issue that always comes to my mind. And I guess the other question I have, and Dan, it might be for you, but when we're going to take this trail along Airport Road, and is this going to interfere as we get Southbridge going and that becomes a more heavily used roadway?
No, that's the really nice thing is this will tie into that 8-foot path that will be on the west side of Airport Road. And of course, the mirror image on the east side, that will be a 10-foot path. So it's good timing for this to tie it all in together. And I will make one comment as far as any trail improvements or maintenance. Really nice thing is that the property owners also included RFOV in the initial conversation, and we have a bookmark date with them as well too, if we need their help, if this should come online this year.
Thanks.
Ingrid and then Shelly.
So I'm super in support of the annexation, because I think parklands, as we grow, it's great to have these opportunities for our residents. So my question is, do we have the budgetary opportunity to put up good signage and to kind of segue from the last conversation we had, or the last agenda item, do we have the ability to put signage in 2 languages as well? And then also, and I'll just throw out all my questions and you can answer them all. I don't know if there's precedent, but how do we let the community know that this is no longer just where they're, skirting on someone's private land, but it's now part of the city? How do we disseminate that to the community so that they know that this opportunity exists and they're welcome to go and enjoy it?
I would say, as far as signage goes, we do have a sign shop with a very sophisticated sign machine. Like, they were able to make the ones, if you've been on 6th Street Landing site, the really beautiful one, they were able to make not the structure, but the sign inside of it in English and Spanish. So that should not be an issue. And I would think we would, Brian, we would do press releases, and I don't know what other special stuff we would do to announce we have taken over a spot.
Ribbon cutting.
Ribbon cutting.
Yeah, we could do that. We'll have it on our website too, as one of our listed, recreation amenities. Remind me what your other question was. I'm sorry.
I think actually Deborah answered both, but I don't know if we're in a comment section, but I think that we've had enough negative stuff come up in the last year that it would be really nice. These kind of things are great opportunities for us to celebrate our community, and any opportunity we can, I'd like to celebrate. This is something fun and definitely an asset. So
yeah. Oh, signage, that was the other thing. So yeah, and speaking to that point as well, we have a number of volunteer service organizations in the community that are looking for opportunities to partner, just for these kind of things. This land dedication easement gift to the city is a good opportunity to create, quite a bit of open space in a city that is very short on public recreation access open space. So whether it's one of the local clubs, I don't think we have any shortage of organizations that would like to partner both financially and service wise to help with this project.
That's great. And then I will just mention, you said that there was a dialogue with Parks and Rec about expanding recreational opportunities on this site. I am strongly encouraging that too. I just think that we can really take advantage of this new opportunity and give people more outdoor opportunities to just play, which is great right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We agree. But at the same time, we're also just as sensitive to some of the concerns that have been brought up. What are going to be the initial costs of some of these improvements? And then what is the perpetual maintenance cost going forward, which we're always sensitive to.
Shelly.
Okay. Again, I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I'm thankful to the landowners for bringing this forward. I think it's a great chance for the city. We've had, as a frequent user of Red Mountain Trail and also the trail up to the Linwood Cemetery and up docks, there's been increased use on those. There's increased pressure on those trails and issues around the parking areas and everything. So to have another area where people can go and get out and hike, I think is fantastic. So I'm trying to think of what the cons would be. I guess besides the cost, I can't really think of any others. But as the negotiation moves forward, certainly bring that forward to us if there are other things to consider. But I do support the annexation. And then the main question I had was, have you thought about parking and where that would be? And will we be able to supply adequate parking facilities for this? And so just another consideration, because I know that's an issue at the different trailheads, and even more so lately. So something to think about. But
yeah,
nope,
and I think that's one of the things that we'll address as we talk about the terms of what this agreement looks like. It's actually fairly unusual for landowners to gift over a conservation easement like this to a city instead of like a land trust, simply for
Right.
tax purposes. So, we kind of want to find out a little more about, what the motivation is behind that. But there are going to be some things like parking if we, create a trailhead. But like Dan said, this is the opportune time to address that as we're making improvements to both Midland and Southbridge that kind of intersect right at the where the trailhead would be to this property. So we have some pretty good opportunities to where we're going to be spending costs for improvements along Airport Road already. That will save us money.
Okay, and it might make sense to have multiple access points. So no, it's a great opportunity, and thanks for bringing it forward. It's exciting.
Oh,
This is a question for Carl. Carl, is this too far away to do the land exchange, which I don't know where we're at right now with Vogler Park?
It is. Yeah, I mean, it would be perfect in some respects, but it's too far away to do that success swap.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, because that did cross my mind too, but it's a good idea, but just too far away.
I like where your head's at, Paula. That's a good one. Brian, has there been any conversations, or there's an HOA there? I think it's 4 Mile. The residents that live that's abutted there. I know they're county residents and all, but have there been any attempt to reach out to the adjacent landowners just to let them know what's going on, so that they could even make comments or participate?
Not yet. So at our last work session with Council and the Parks and Rec Commission was the first time we kind of brought this to your attention, and then we wanted to vet it through Parks and Rec Commission, see what their concerns were, questions, what they wanted us to go back to the landowners about first, and then get your direction on whether, yay, pursue it. Let's work through some of those terms, flesh out costs, and bring all that information back to council for approval, or not. And if that's the direction you want to go, then yeah, I think that's pretty prudent to reach out and get some comments from that subdivision up there.
Yeah, I think just being proactive and getting those comments might help inform your conversations with the current landowner.
Yeah, especially since those trails abut the backs of those properties. We hope that this will, usually when we have established trail systems, that alleviate some of the pirate social trails that people cut across private property with. So hopefully that would be a benefit from this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'll just make a comment. I love seeing Ward 5 grow and expand, taking over the world. No, I think it's a great idea. I think it's anytime we can do something low cost like that and add an amenity without, to Paula's comment, adding 10 other problems potentially, like we saw with the Walmart, then I think it's a good thing. So I'm supportive of directing staff to go back and work with the landowners. And it sounds like, do we need a formal vote for this, Deborah, or do you have enough direction or ideas?
Throw that to Carl.
Yeah, no, I think we've got enough direction. I mean, we need to do a little bit more due diligence. We need to come to a final form of a conservation easement agreement that would be put in front of council. So this is really not, other than a keep moving forward, that's the only thing we need from council tonight. Your actual decision making is going to be looking at the whole package when we come back.
And I think what I heard is that you would like us to look at pursuing annexing in the additional 18 acres into that conservation easement area. Okay.
All right. I think I'm good. Are you, Brian?
I'm good.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I think we are now on to, just so my numbers are correct, 18, we did continue. Are we on to 19?
You missed 18, John. I'm just kidding.
Okay, my turn.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to let the community know we put out a press release, but we got notification that we got a $500,000 grant from the Department of Local Affairs for our water issue from the Grizzly Creek fire, and to thank Shelly for her help in helping us get that. And then of course, Matt for his wonderful presentation. So that's all I got.
Great job on that. Great job on Matt on the presentation and all of that.
Thank you. That's huge. We don't even realize sometimes when we get $500,000 because literally we have a staff that is so good at getting grants that, like, great, cool. Deborah, did I also see something that we might have also got funding potentially for Atkins Canal Swamp?
Yes, we got, they announced it. The River Commission wanted to announce it at their meeting with council today. I think it was like 82,000 and they're hoping to get another 80,000 to help the 3 Mile area. One of the things is to help get rid of that green, swampy, yucky area.
That is awesome, and that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, I think they said they have grants for approximately half of that 3 Mile confluence project. So that's great.
That's fantastic. Brian Smith, thank you. I see you still on the line. Thank you so much for working on that. I remember sitting at Sopris Elementary a couple of years ago and putting the little sticky tabs onto the different things and encouraging my fellow citizens, don't worry about money. It's okay. We'll find it somewhere. So thank you for working through that process. That 3 Mile confluence can be a real gem, and we're really looking forward to seeing what we can do with that. Carl, you got anything?
We had a kind of a fun ruling that came out this week. I sent you guys an email on. It's always positive when your positions are ratified by the court. We'll see if RMI decides to appeal that decision or not, but it was a really solid, well-written, well thought out decision. So really happy about that. So that's kind of, every once in a while I get to have good news. So there's a little bit of good news.
She's a good judge, Carl.
She is. She did a great job on this opinion. And all of the issues that were important to the city of Glenwood Springs, we won on. And so it forms a really solid basis moving forward. So like I said, I'm really happy about that.
Her opinion, Carl, was very well thought out when you go through it. She did it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's, and that's been our experience as a firm with this judge, and which is great. And so it probably will go up on appeal, but I think it is it's a very, very good opinion from a trial court. So like I said, super happy about that. A lot of people on the county's outside council team worked on this, and then obviously our team here internally did. And so, Richard worked on that. James worked on that. One of the new partners in my firm that we just brought into the firm as a partner, Shoshana Rosenthal, also worked on that. So it was a good team effort.
Awesome.
Just a side comment on RMI. I don't know if you all have heard, but Aspen Public Radio, maybe some of you participated in this, but they're going to do a series of articles. I think at the end of this month, like four days in a row, they're going to do a series of articles on RMI. So just picked that up in the news this morning when I was listening to Aspen Public Radio.
Thanks, John.
Cool. That's all I have.
Awesome. Carl, thank you so much for your work on this legal work, and also thank you and Deborah for the throwing the flag up early in the process that got us to the point where we had a fighting chance. So this community has no idea what the amount of work Deborah and Carl did on its behalf to get us to where we can even have a shot at rulings like this. So thank you very much to both of you guys. And with that, incoming, any correspondence, incoming, outgoing? Nope. All right. We stand adjourned. Oh, do we a motion?
I'll motion that.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your hand. It is unanimous. Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye, everybody.